So how do you win an offer in this crazy market? Let's talk about it. What's up, YouTube? This is Dan Inman with the Living in Coastal Virginia channel. If you're new here, we talk live, work, play of the Coastal Virginia Tidewater 757 area. I am an active realtor, so as much as I love making these videos or putting this content out for you, I'd love more to help you with your real estate needs. All of my contact information should be below, or Sean will put it maybe in my hand right here. Yeah, so if you do me a huge favor, mostly for my ego because it's fragile and easy to break, hit that like button. It lets me know that I'm putting out content that's helpful for you, and you can smash that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. So what are we talking about today? Today we're going to talk about this market, and if you're out there in this market as a buyer, you may have already written a few offers and they've been rejected, or two, if you're kind of prepping yourself to go out there and make an offer this summer, what are the ways that you can make your offer attractive and actually win amongst maybe a sea of 5, 10, 20, 30 offers? All right, so we're going to cover 32 ways. There are probably more that I didn't remember to write down, but as I was writing this kind of article, if you will, these were the first 32 that came to my mind. And if you think of something that I left out, let me know down in the comments. So before we get rolling into these, there's kind of 4 categories that we need to think about when it comes to making offers, because much like any other type of negotiating with your children or negotiating with your wife or significant other, you've got to see things from their point of view, right? And so from the seller's point of view, there are 4 categories that we need to think about. One is, how much money are they taking home? 2, how easy is it for them to fulfill the contract which you've sent them? 3, does it work on the timeline that is best for them? And then 4, how much risk are they taking on by accepting your contract over another one? So each one of these 32 kind of fit into one of those categories or another. Let's roll on to number 1. So number 1 is, in most people's opinion, is how much does it net the seller, right? So an offer, if, let's say it's listed at $350. If you're offering $375 or $360 or $355, obviously that puts more money into the seller's pocket, and so they're going to be more attracted to that offer. Number 2, how easy is it for the seller to fulfill the contract? Do you have a home sale contingency? Do you have a home inspection contingency? Are you asking to do a full HVAC inspection? What are the 42 other things that you're asking them to do? Are you asking them to remove a tree in the backyard? Are you asking them to leave the drapes in the kitchen or in the living room? How easy is it for them to fulfill the contract that you sent over? Number 3, look at old listings. Because this market is so quick and so fast moving, does not mean that there aren't some unreasonable sellers out there that listed their home at the moon, trying to get the best they possibly could that was completely unreasonable, and they've sat. The average days on market today for most price points in our market is like 14 days. So if they've sat for 45 days, they are well past the period in which they should have been sold already. So maybe you go back and you check out the property that you kind of glossed over, but maybe worth go check out, and write an offer that you think is reasonable and see if they finally come to their senses. Number 4, consider writing an offer, and when you send over your pre-approval, include the full pre-approval amount. Let's say you're making an offer at $350, but you've been pre-approved all the way up to $600,000. This is going to drive confidence with the seller that you are buying a home well within your range of being able to purchase, and if something life event were to come up, a transmission breaks, you need to go fly home to see grandma, and you have to put something on the credit card, it's not going to ruin your financing, and you're going to be totally fine. So so the amount the amount under your pre-approval that you're purchasing for is going to drive confidence in the seller and your ability to perform. Number 5, now my wife already does this, so if you're working with both of us, this is gonna happen anyway, but ask your loan officer or your lender to call the listing agent on your behalf, right? Part of buying property or buying real estate is there are all these team members that go into it, like the title or attorney, the buyer's agent, the loan officer. Having the loan officer call on your behalf and talk you up, hey, they've been fully underwritten, they've turned in all their conditions, they're well qualified, they have great credit, they have great debt to income, is another vote of confidence to that listing agent that they're dealing with a professional and they're not gonna have issues with communication. Number 6, another one for the loan officer, again, something that my wife does on a regular occasion, have the lender offer a close on time guarantee. Now, the lender cannot give the seller direct money, but they can offer the buyer or their client a close on time guarantee. Hey, if we don't close by the time that we say that we're gonna close, we'll give you a $500 lender credit or a $1,000 lender credit, or we'll cover the cost of your appraisal. This is another item in which could drive confidence to the listing agent when they're talking to the seller. Hey, by the way, this buyer right here, their lender is so confident that they will close on time that they're willing to sacrifice X amount of dollars or X item to the buyer if they are unable to perform. Number 7, just go see the home anyway. There are probably things that you have looked at on Zillow, HomeSnap, whatever tool you're using to look, whatever tool you're using to look at that you probably glossed over at first glance. Maybe it's worth going and taking a look at it anyway. Maybe the photos don't do it justice. Maybe you go in there and you go, you know what, with 10 grand, we could really make this house our own. There are plenty of people, because 99.9% start their search online and they're quickly making decisions on whether or not they want to go see the home. You may have glossed over something on your initial search. Number 8, hence on one that we've already covered, but provide a penalty on you if you do not close on time. Hey, Mr. Seller, if I don't close on time, I will pay $100 per day until we close on your behalf. However you want to, you and your agent decide to structure that and what's legal in your state with your attorney. But if you can provide a penalty on you for not closing on time, again, that drives confidence and drives that, letting the seller know that you are both very serious and willing to take it at a detriment to yourself if you are unable to perform on the timeline that you said you would. Number 9, make your earnest money deposit, which is known as your I'm serious money, or EMD, non-refundable for any reason. Now, the buyer has a decent amount of outs in the contract, or at least in our standard contract in our area, in which they are able to get out of the contract without too much ramifications, meaning they get their earnest money deposit back. So the appraisal could be an issue. If you have a home inspection contingency, you're allowed to back out and get your earnest money deposit back. If there's an appraisal issue that comes back that is unresolved, you can get your earnest money deposit back. So you can make your earnest money deposit non-refundable for any reason, or potentially just a portion of that earnest money deposit non-refundable. Why would you do this? Well, you have to think about it again from the seller's perspective. If I take your offer over someone else's offer, I usually only have one chance to go on the market, negotiate, let's say 5, 10, 20 contracts, right? And get the best of those offers. If I have to go back on the market, even in this market, the likelihood that I get just as much competition and just as much drive towards my home on the second go around is much lower. And so I don't want to risk taking an offer without something to compensate me for if you end up backing out, right? And so let's say that the difference that you could potentially get on offer 1 versus the second go around might be $5,000 or $10,000 or even $20,000. Well, if your earnest money deposit is $5,000 and non-refundable for any reason, the sting is much less if I have to go back on market and remarket my home and renegotiate a new contract. I hope that makes sense. Number 10 is a simple one. Increase the amount of your earnest money deposit. Obviously, if you only have $500 down of your I'm serious money, well, you just look less serious as a buyer. If you have $1,000, $2,000, 1, 2, 3% of the purchase price as your earnest money deposit, this gives the seller a lot of confidence. Do remember that if you do have a low earnest money deposit and you decide not to perform on that contract, the seller could potentially come and sue you for non-performance. And in the market that we're in, where again, if they have to go back on market, and they could make a case that by you backing out of the contract, they lost out on the potential of $10 or $20 or $30 or $40,000 more between the contract that you offered and their secondary contract, they may have a potential argument to come after you for those funds. Number 11, pick a date that's best for the seller. This is a very easy one. You say, hey, when would you like to close? And they say 45 days, they say 21 days, they say 90 days. This is a very simple thing to do. You ask the listing agent to ask their client when would they like to sell, and you go with that date. Number 12, provide a flexible closing date. Hey, as long as we close within 120 days, we don't care. You close whenever you want to, right? Now, I guess that this could be rolled up into, one, but I thought that it was important because I've used both of those, both a close when you want to and a flexible date, as two different negotiation tactics to get my clients under contract. Number 13, another closing date one. Offer to close as fast as possible and provide a rent back period. Hey, let's close in 30 days and you can rent back this home. Let's say it's a VA, conventional, or FHA loan. All three of those require, when you get a loan on the property, to occupy the home within 60 days of close. So you could offer up to a 60-day closing period, either offering with a rent back or rent free. You close, you can go out there and make an offer on your next house without a home sale contingency, and you get the money in your pocket today, guaranteed. And by the way, you can live there now for 60 days while you're going out and shopping for the next house without any cost to you. Number 14, use an escalation clause wisely. An escalation clause is sort of like eBay bidding. You say, hey, I want to buy your house for this much, and then you offer in increments, let's say of $1,000. I'm willing to buy your house for $350,000 up to $360,000 in increments of $1,000 over the next highest offer. Number 15 would be potentially to offer the full amount of your escalation clause up front. What if that seller has received 20 offers? Navigating 20 offers, moving up and down in increments of $1,000 can be quite messy and complicated. So you may want to go outright and offer the full amount from the beginning. Number 16, and this one is important because anyone who struggles with negotiation, feeling like they have to have the last word, is going to struggle with going back and forth. Ask yourself this question. If I was totally willing to offer $10,000 more, let's say you found out, and you would have been willing to offer $10,000 more, and you lose out because of that, will that drive you crazy? So that question can be very helpful in guiding how much to offer from the beginning. Number 17 is offer an appraisal guarantee. Let's say that they're doing a conventional FHA or VA loan, right? And it's $350,000. Well, the bank is only going to loan them based off of the appraised value amount. So you may want to offer, let's say you're offering $375,000, and this will be a conversation with your buyer's agent. Your buyer's agent may say, hey, we could potentially run into appraisal issues above this amount. Let's just say $375,000. And so a good savvy listing agent may also bring that up and say, hey, I see you offered $390,000. I don't know if it's going to appraise much more above $375,000. Can you offer a guarantee of those funds to my seller if the appraisal value is not met? Number 18, cover your own closing costs. Now, 2-3 years ago, it was very easy or not very complicated to go to a seller and say, hey, look, can we get 3% closing cost assistance? And this is equity out of the seller's home to pay for the closing cost for the buyer. And it wasn't uncommon that if we needed to, we could always offer a little bit more for the property to get those covered. Well, in today's market, because there's so many offers, there are a lot of people that are offering above list price and covering their own closing costs. You have to remember that closing cost assistance comes out of the seller's pocket. So you may need to come to this market ready and willing to cover your own. Number 19, potentially make an offer without a home inspection. Now, this is a tricky one because nobody wants to buy a home and not knowing what's going on inside the home. So you may want to spend a little bit extra time at the initial walkthrough, looking through the different rooms, looking at ceilings for watermarks, potentially if they have a walking in the attic and seeing if you see any water stains along the roof. Go out in the back, check the serial number for the HVAC unit, see how old it is, ask up front what the ages of the water heater and the heat pump and the furnace and all of those items are, so that potentially, if you're in a position where you've got $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in savings, you may be able to write an offer without a home inspection contingency at all, or a home inspection for info purposes only. Now, you want to speak to your buyer's agent or the agent representing you about the risks associated with this, but it could be a good way to stand out amongst all of your competition. Number 20, hence a little bit on the last one, look at homes that are kind of being looked over. The ones that aren't that pretty, the ones that are very much look like they've been owned by grandma and grandpa for the last 20 years and have the salmon colored bathrooms and the green carpet and the old wood paneling walls. There are a lot of people that are overlooking these because a lot of buyers across the age spectrum are wanting basically ready homes. They want to move in and not have to do anything. So you're going to see less competition in the homes that are dated or need work. Oh, and one little thought on that, maybe because they are less competitive, instead of going for a property that you would definitely have to offer an appraisal guarantee or cover all of your own closing costs, or potentially have to put more cash down in a different situation, you can go with a 5% down instead of 20% down and use those funds to improve the property instead of actually putting that full amount down on the loan. Number 21, you as the buyer can offer to cover things that come up on the appraisal, the sewer and septic or well water, the termite and moisture inspection report. You can offer to cover those out of your own pocket and not put that on the seller. Again, putting more money in the seller's pocket. And that because that is a repair and not necessarily attached to the value of the home, it doesn't become an issue with appraisal guarantees. So something to consider. Number 22, accept the previous inspection. Now, I do professional pre-inspections on the majority of the listings that I do. I hire someone to go out, look at the property, just as if a buyer was going to look at it, and I provide that inspection report along with the items that the owner ends up repairing available to potential buyers. If one of those is available, you can choose to accept the previous home inspection report, one, saving you a little bit of money, but two, putting you in a position where someone who says, I have to have my own guy look at it, is going to be a little bit less attractive to that seller. Number 23, adjust your inspection contingency period or your due diligence period, depending on where you're at and how people call it. The faster that you can get your inspections done, the less risk that the seller takes of taking their house off of the market and having to go back on the market. The longer the home sits on the market, the more people tend to question what was wrong with it in the first place. Number 24, offering an appraisal guarantee is great. Showing proof that you actually can cover that appraisal guarantee is even more important. So if you can have your client or you show proof of funds for that appraisal guarantee, that can go a long way in driving confidence to the seller. Number 25, back to the loan officer. Complete all of the required documents that your LO has asked for. Now again, this is something that my wife does exceptionally well and will convey to you if you start the loan process with her, is she's gonna say, hey, before you go out in the marketplace, let's get all of these things done so that when I do call on your behalf and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Listing Agent, I'm so happy to make an offer with my client on this property of yours. They have done this, and they are fully underwritten, or they have turned all their supporting documents in. It drives home confidence that you are on top of your stuff and well organized. Number 26, order that appraisal as soon as possible, or in your contract, or even when you're conveying information to the listing agent, say that as soon as the lender will allow you to do so, that you're going to order the appraisal. Now this becomes more important when you have appraisal guarantees because they're going to want to resolve any potential appraisal issues as soon as possible, because if the contract is not going to move forward, they're going to want to go back on market and get a better offer or an equivalent offer as soon as possible. Number 27, back to that earnest money deposit. You can make the earnest money deposit non-refundable after the inspection period. So maybe you're not comfortable making an offer without inspections or for inspection purposes, info purposes only, but as is, and you're going to not ask for any repairs. You can say after the inspections, if there's any appraisal or finance issues that come up, right? Because those are still issues where you can get your earnest money deposit back. You can say, I make it non-refundable after the inspection period. Again, driving confidence that you're either going to move forward or two, they get to keep those funds. Number 28 is one that I've used a couple of times. You can, let's say that you're one of the first few people into this home and you're like, hey, I'm on board with putting my best foot forward immediately. You ask your agent, hey, will you see if they have any other offers? Buyer's agent goes to the listing agent and says, hey, do you guys have any offers? Listing agent responds, we don't have any yet, but we've had 16 showings today and 2 people have promised me that they will send one. One of the things I do as a listing agent, as I will say, is that an offer in hand is always better than one that is promised. If you show up and write a great offer at the beginning, you may be able to get the seller to take it. If you go, hey, here's this offer. If you're willing to accept this offer now, let's say a Friday afternoon, instead of waiting till Sunday or Monday, I'll throw in an extra 10 grand immediately if you'll accept it without waiting. This may be enough incentive for them to go, you know what, we could potentially get something more, but this is a great offer, and we automatically get another 10 or 15 or however much is appropriate that you discuss with your agent to accept now. That could be an interesting tactic to get them to accept it quickly rather than wait the entire weekend. Number 29, we've kind of hinted on this already. Put your best foot forward, period, down at the very beginning. Homes that are the prettiest or the best are going to get the most amount of offers. If you, at the very beginning, put an offer down when they've only got 2 or 3, and they are going to wait till Sunday or Monday to review offers, and by that time they have 20 or 25, they may go ahead and shuffle that offer to the very bottom of the packet because they don't see you as a strong bidder, and may not give you another chance to come back to the table and adjust that offer. You have to understand that when you're juggling 20 or 30 offers, that's a lot of information to process as a listing agent, and although you are obligated to present all offers to your seller, you're most definitely going to say, hey, here are the top 2, 3, 4, or 5 that we should consider in the different categories of what they're offering in those offers. So make sure you put your best foot forward at the very beginning. Number 30, offer to cover some of the seller's closing costs. Now, every loan product will have limitations on how much they will allow for the individual cover of the seller's closing costs, but you can cover things like title and attorney's fees, and in some cases, even the commissions of the agent on behalf of the seller. Again, this is not tied to the appraisal or the contract value of the home, and so it's looked at as more of a guaranteed amount of money in my pocket. It's something that you can do as a buyer in this market that not many people are utilizing. Number 31, get a roommate. I know this sounds kind of ridiculous, but we do have a lot of young military here, and let's say that you have to offer more than what you were hoping to, or the home prices have gone up more than what you expected, and your payment was going to be $1,600 a month, but because of how things have gone, your payment's now $1,700 or $1,800 or $1,900 a month. Well, getting a roommate for that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you were planning on living in by yourself can offset the cost quite substantially. I have lots of young military guys and gals that have done this prior to this type of market, and I think it's a great way to, in the industry, as we call house hack. So get a roommate, offset those costs, or maybe even rebuild the savings after you've used a lot of that cash for that appraisal guarantee. All right, number 32 is near and dear to my heart. Get help. So I'll tell a really quick story here that I think is important because most people are looking at buying homes because they think it's a wise financial decision. And I'll ask the question, hey, are you making this decision because you think it's wise financially? Most of the time they say yes. I said, and are you doing this because you're trying to provide eventually more for your kids that can provide more for their kids? And usually the answer is yes. When I was a young man here in the military, my grandmother sent me a check for $500. I was 22 years old, and I thought, I'm a grown man, I don't need to have $500 from my grandma. I feel guilty about this. So I put it into the drawer of my desk, and I get a phone call from my mom about 30 days later. Hey Dan, or she calls me Daniel. Hey Daniel, Mimi called me and said that she had sent you a check. She wanted to make sure that you got it. I said, yeah, Mom, but I'm a grown man. I don't need to be getting money from my grandmother for my birthday. That's kind of silly. And my mom proceeds to lay into me and tell me how it was selfish of me to take away the ability of my grandmother to give me a gift, right? My grandmother and grandfather had been very wise with their money, and that this was just as much about them and the ability to give a gift as it was for me to actually receive it. What I would say is having a conversation with grandma and grandpa, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, about making a wise financial decision and present it as partnership and not a handout. Hey, I'm looking at buying a house and I'm trying to make a wise financial decision, but the market right now is a little bit nuts. I may have to provide an appraisal guarantee or offer to cover some closing costs or cover my own closing costs to be able to win. But I think long term, it's going to be a great financial decision. Would you help me accomplish that? Maybe you tell them that you're planning on getting a roommate so that you can reestablish those savings over time. The likelihood that your mom and dad or grandma and grandpa have saved that money and are willing to help you out is high. And I would say the same thing about my kids and my grandkids one day. So be willing to have that conversation with family, or in some cases with the VA loan, you can actually get that gift from a non-family member. So this is a conversation you'll need to have, preferably earlier the better, because even if you are going to be using those funds for the purchasing of property, it may need a seasoning time, which means it needs to be in your account for a certain period of time. You'll need to have that conversation with Rachel next door on the loan program and what you're trying to accomplish. But talk to family and friends about trying to accomplish this goal together and not just alone. Hey, I realized I've thrown a ton at you. This is a market that is kind of nuts for buyers. It can be very stressful. I have a lot of people that are selling homes and turning around and buying them, and so they love me one minute and kind of are frustrated with me the next. Was there anything in there that you've done in the past that you think I left out? Was there anything in there that you thought was absolutely ridiculous and you never would do? Either way, I hope this is helpful. Again, my name is Dan Imden. I'm a local realtor here in the coastal Virginia area. My wife is a loan officer, and a lot of times we work together to help families move in and out of the area as smoothly and easily as possible. If you'd like to get a hold of us, all of our information should be below, or maybe in my left hand this time, Sean. Hopefully you can coordinate that. And we'd love to hear from you. Our team is the people that respond to that text message or that email or phone call. If you do me a huge favor, hit the like button. It lets me know that the content that I'm putting out is actually helpful and that you enjoy it. And then if you'd like to see more content like this, you can obviously hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell notification to get all those notifications. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.